afternoon and welcome to WCU Athletics Chalk Talk. I am your host, Jim Zuhlke, and I am here this week with our women's soccer coach, Betty Ann Kempf Townsley, and our men's soccer coach, Michael Benn. Betty Ann and Michael, how you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm doing great.
Doing very well.
I'm coming to you live from Rockwell Field to all those Ram supporters.
I wish we were at Rockwell, that's for sure. But WCU Athletics Chalk Talk is brought to you by Citadel. And so, Coach Benn, I think we'll start with you. Just give everybody an update on what you've been doing during this irregular time off, I guess you could
Yeah, without question. Well, back, the beginning of the pandemic, I became a pretty good third grade teacher. As long as it was just one student, I was fine. And so we got through, homeschooling with the kids.
The one-to-one ratio was working.
The one-to-one ratio makes a big, big difference. And so that worked out okay, and helped get our guys through the rest of the semester, which was important. And then, here in the summer, been just trying to keep my two kids busy as best we can without having the pool open, and coming up with different activities to, fill the hours of the day. And my wife is back at work, so I've been doing most of the keeping the household up and running.
Coach Kemp Townsley, how about you? What have you been doing to keep busy?
Well, in the beginning, we had some Zoom calls with our players, checking in with our players, and during the beginning of this, I was really just concerned about their health and safety more than anything, and just trying to make them laugh. And then as we got into the summer mode, I did go down for a week to Florida to make sure my house was in good shape, and we have a pool in our backyard, so that's been keeping us busy. Been reading, been just playing games with my neighborhood kids, having a good time. We started a big walking group with our neighborhood adults, so I've been partaking in that. So just kind of keeping busy and active.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Now, talk a litof bit about some of the challenges this has brought to each of you. I guess, Betty Ann, we'll start with you. Kind of talk about the challenges in the Zoom meetings. Probably by now, in the middle of the summer, everyone is Zoomed out, per se. But, talk about some of those challenges and how your kids have responded.
It's interesting because I think this generation of young people have always used the computer and used the phone. And what I have found that as time went on during this whole Zoom period is that they were really getting tired of it. And I think the challenges being that, my concern was just for them to make sure that they were safe and healthy and getting some good, rest and exercise during that period when they were in class. I think that my players did very well academically, maintaining a 3.6 GPA. I think that they did a great job with that. So academics was not questionable, but at the same time, some of them didn't feel very confident learning that way, and didn't want to continue to do it that way. So I think that was really the challenge, but nonetheless, they got through it. They did what they had to do to stay eligible and ready to play. But I just kind of wanted to make them laugh. We did some fun things on Zoom, like they had to wear their favorite jersey from their youth soccer, time, and tell us a little story about it. So that was fun. So we had some fun with it. So it was great.
So I noticed some of the videos you guys made where they're kicking the soccer balls off the one side of the screen and somebody else picks that up. Was that an idea you or your assistant coach came up with, or did the girls?
Those girls, they all had that themselves. They're very creative, and I guess because they did have the time, especially in the beginning when the first 3 weeks they didn't have any classes, so they were really creative about what they do. And there's a lot of togetherness in that group of players, and it was a real great way for them to connect to one another, and just have fun. That's really what it was. Mm-hmm.
And Coach Ben, how about you? How do you keep the guys together, and how did you keep up the communication with your players?
Yeah, it was certainly different, a new coaching challenge without question. And so, myself and my assistant, we had an individual call with the guys once a week just to see how they were handling academics and checking in with their health and their well-being and those types of things. And then we also had a weekly Zoom call, which was really the highlight of my week back when that was going on, to be able to see everyone's faces. And we were able to include our team impact member Colby on those calls, and that really helped, I think, quite a bit with the guys. And we did, like the women's program did some different activities and things like that. Some that worked smoothly, some not so much. But it was a good learning experience, I think, in some ways. So still trying to find ways to, keep the connection amongst the group, and, being creative with that as best we could.
So, keeping with you, Coach Ben, with WCU's announcement on Friday that there won't be fall sports at Westchester, how have you kind of kept the guys' spirits up, and how has your team handled that news?
And look, it's always it's a difficult situation that we're in right now, and I think everyone realizes that certain decisions have to be made. The number one thing is the health and well-being of everybody, and you know, I think the university administration has done a good job in terms of being in front of things and making decisions. And I think trying to reiterate to our guys that it's about their health and well-being first and foremost, and that we have to just remain positive and try to look forward to when things will get back to a little more normal. It's certainly a challenge, but it's something we just have to continue to talk through as a program.
And Coach Kempf Townsley, from the women's side, is a situation like this a way for you to maybe lean on your team captains a little bit more to try to keep the morale of the girls up?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to apologize for the noise. Actually, Dave Wolf came back here to kick me off the field, and when he got up here, he realized it was me. So I apologize. Anyway, yes, and my captains up until this point have done an incredible job with the players, keeping them all motivated the best way that they can. And I think for the most part, my players and my team, they are real self-motivated. I think that it's going to be challenging once again, to study online and to learn online, but they've done it now. They know what to expect. And so, we'll just take one day at a time and be positive about it.
Okay. So this is kind of one of the questions from that we had come in, but from each of your perspectives, I wanted to get in a little bit and talk about the MLS as well as the NWSL. Has that helped college athletics say, hey, there might be a blueprint to getting this done and getting this in? And what has each of your I guess what have you guys seen with that might be able to help the college game, get seasons in?
Betty Ann, why don't you take it first?
Okay. I just look at it at the perspective is that it's great to have some kind of sport back, especially soccer, obviously, so that, if you want to sit down and watch a game, you have something to be able to watch live, as opposed to 3-4 years ago. It's good to see players that our players can identify with, and the country can identify with. I think that I actually watched some of the soccer from the Women's League the first weekend. Definitely they were a little rusty, I could say that for sure. And I think what we can learn from that is that, yes, they're playing, but there has to be some sort of day-to-day process. I think that we just can't get in there and jump and get right into playing right away, because now we've had all this time off physically and mentally. I think it's going to take time for players to get back into that mode again. So it's not something that we can jump right into it. And I guess from the perspective of the professional leagues is that, yeah, they've done some training, but they're all kind of exclusive in an area. And that's one of the things I believe our players have to understand is that things won't be the same, but it can be different, but we can still exist and we can still have fun and we can still have some sort of soccer going on.
Coach Ben, how about you from your perspective?
It's been great for my individual psyche first and foremost, as Betty Ann was saying, to have games back. And certainly the Bundesliga was the first one back, and the EPL and the other leagues in Europe. But now that the NWSL and MLS have got back, it's there's soccer on almost every day, which is fantastic from a also professional development standpoint, to be able to just watch what different programs around the world are doing. In terms of how they're set up, the MLS being bunkered down at Disney World in Orlando, in their own little bubble, kind of like the NBA will be doing here shortly. It's, again, like Betty Ann said, it's a new normal, and that you can still get some things done. There's going to be different protocols and different things that you have to enforce. It's certainly costing MLS millions of dollars to run it this way. So I don't know if college athletics can exactly follow that model, but it's outside the box thinking, and that's what it's going to take right now. Is that we have to recognize that athletics plays tremendous value in our society for our young people in college, and to try to find a way to make this work for them, I think is really important.
Okay.
Yeah, and if they want to send us to Disney World, I would be more than happy.
You would be okay with that.
Yes.
Well, in 06, I think that's where they played the Final Four, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have my research in front of me because I'm not in my office either. But I think in 06, when the women's team went to the semifinals, I think they played it down there in Orlando.
Okay.
So the one question that they had from you along those same lines was, is there pressure from year to year on you and the coaching staff to try to live up to some of the past seasons, and kind of I think what they're getting at is the history and the tradition of the women's soccer team usually goes fairly far in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to call it pressure, anxiety, excitement. I mean, it's all those things coming together, but I think as an individual, when you're the head coach, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be successful every year, regardless. But the culture here is such that I do believe that the players that we recruit and we try to recruit are those players that are good on the soccer field, but are better people, are exceptional people that we want to groom and invite into our culture to make it better. So yeah, there is a pressure to that. And that comes from myself more than anything. But I think too that the players that are here create the atmosphere and the culture for players to step in here and bring their game up higher. So I think that it's a challenge for anybody that comes here, but it's also something that is a tradition here that we can continue. And yes, and every year it's exciting in terms of, okay, how is this going to look? Who's going to come in here? Who's going to step up? And it's just, I think for me, I try and keep it in perspective. And the most important part of this job for me is to provide these players and these young women with an experience they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. And hopefully we're going to learn from our defeats and rise to that occasion. But more or less, it's polishing them as human beings and moving them on to be better people for their future and what they're going to do with their lives.
And so, I guess along those lines, is it particularly rewarding for both of you, really, as a coach, to see someone who comes in and doesn't get a lot of playing time their first maybe 2 years, but then they kind of turn that corner when they're an upperclassman and they really do take charge and become, integral. And, so much in college athletics, if kids don't play right away, they want to transfer out and go play where they can play right away. But to see kids kind of stick it out and pay their dues, and then that pays off for them later in their careers.
For me, that's the joy of coaching. It's really the joy of coaching. It's the growth process, the maturation process in these players, and developing as people. And just, like you say, they come in, they may not have that much time, and then to watch them develop over the years is just very rewarding and makes me stay in this profession or vocation for as long as I have.
And Coach Benn?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the real thrills of the job, and that, you're right. Sometimes with people struggle early with playing time and don't get that reward. Sometimes they don't stick with it, but those that do and show that mental toughness, and they're rewarded at the end. I think from, two of my favorite examples are, Nico and Pix from our 2018 team, where their freshman year, they were the lowest two in terms of minutes played. And they both ended up starting in a national championship game as their senior year came. So they were able to have a great 4-year experience and recognize that it wasn't just all about that freshman year.
And so, Coach Benn, again, from Justin in Downingtown, where does that 2018 run to the championship game rank for you?
It's certainly right at the top of the list. Been doing this a long time, so you have some good seasons and not so great seasons sometimes. But what that 2018 team was able to accomplish, the team chemistry and the togetherness of that group was fantastic. And certainly the Final Four that weekend was a festival, unforgettable. But certainly for me, the biggest thing that sticks out is that weekend prior, where we actually defeated the defending national champion, University of Charleston. They'd only given up 3 goals on the year to that point, and just thought we played extremely well in that game to be able to win that, and then turn around and have to beat a really good Adelphi team after having to change venue because of a snowstorm, and the grass field was unplayable, and we were in a dance studio for a locker room, and there were just a lot of built-in excuses if we had allowed it to be. But that group just said, all right, this is what it is, and we're going to go forward. And I thought that weekend we really played some of the best soccer we've played in my time here. And that group that memory, I hope to top it without question. But right now it's right at the beginning or top of the list.
And when you're making a run like that, and then you do lose the championship game, I know that loss probably stings with the guys because they were so close.
Sure.
But a couple years later, as you've talked to some of those players, is it for them the same type of experience, do you think? Do they look back on that and say, yeah, but that was still one of the best times of my life?
I think so, yes, without question. I think, look, it does still sting a little bit. And thanks for bringing it up, Jim. That's great. But it's, without question. And I think as they continue to progress in their lives, they'll be able to look back and recognize that, look, a lot of people don't get to be college athletes. And a lot of people don't get to play in an NCAA tournament. And a lot of people don't get to go as far as we did that year. And so it certainly was an unbelievable achievement for that group of young men. And it's something they should take great pride in.
So as the summer progresses here, should there be a spring season for soccer? I just wanted to get your 2 thoughts on that. I mean, I guess I would say, would you rather play or not play? I think any coach in the world would say we'd rather play, but I just wanted to get your 2 thoughts on kind of the uniqueness, I guess, of in season being spring instead of just being the time to put in new systems and try to figure out what you need to do for the coming season.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A coach and the players would rather just always have an opportunity to play. And so if it happens to be that, it's the spring, then it's a spring, and it is what it is. I think the group I'm most thoughtful of are the seniors, and trying to make sure that we're able to provide for them that one last season and chance for hopefully winning a PSAC championship. But I think that the mentality of our group has always been, you tell us when and where, and we'll show up and we'll play. And so we're kind of, whatever the PSAC and the other groups decide, we'll be ready to go whenever we're allowed to step on the field.
And Coach Kempf, Townsley, how about you?
Yeah, hey, we'll play whenever. Just tell us when to be. We'll be there. But I think, like Michael was saying, the seniors, that's who I'm thinking most about. And the new incoming freshmen, that kind of thing. But the seniors, more importantly, this is a great senior class coming up and great leadership in this senior class. And if there's anything, I want them to have a season that they've never had before. And, you know that every other year I've been able to take the team to Charleston. Well, this is the group that we were going to go this August to Charleston once again. And that's not going to be in the cards, obviously, at this point. But I certainly want to make that a most memorable last year for them. And so anything we can do to enhance that experience, and that's what we're going to do.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for this session of WCU Chalk Talk. Head coach Betty Ann Kempf Townsley and head coach Michael Benn, I thank you for your time and for joining. These things have tended to be a lot of fun for me. I think this one was just as much fun as the others so far. I hope the two of you had a good time with it. I hope the two of you also can continue through the summer, and hopefully you have some practice sessions at least in the fall coming up. Because like Coach Betty Ann said, you can't just get out there and play right away. You gotta put in the training too. But Coach Betty Ann, how's the donkey look? I'm usually the one with that view, not the coach.
It's a view from the donkey here. I see all parts of every soccer field, but I want to see the kids out here. That's what I want.
All right. Well, guys, thank you very much, and hope to see you on the pitch pretty soon.
Thanks, you, Jim.
Love you.